Subscribe to StoryLab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Call. Clint McMahon was reviewing architectural blueprints for the downtown renovation project when his desk phone rang. At 42, he'd built McMahon Design Group from a one-man operation into the most sought-after architectural firm in the Pacific Northwest. His office overlooked Seattle's skyline, a testament to 15 years of 18-hour days and calculated risks. "Clint McMahon," he answered, not looking up from the drawings. "Mr. McMahon, this is Eleanor Spencer, principal at Lakewood Academy. Your daughter is in my office. She's been expelled. You need to come get her immediately." Clint's pencil stopped mid-stroke. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your daughter, Carrie. She's been involved in a serious incident. Please come now." "Miss Spencer, I don't have a daughter. I think there's been a mistake." The principal's voice turned sharp. "Mr. McMahon, this is not the time for games. Carrie McMahon is sitting in my office right now, and she needs her father. Please come to the school." The line went dead. Clint stared at the phone. He'd been married to Kathleen for 12 years. They had no children, a source of quiet grief they'd both learned to live with after years of failed fertility treatments. He'd never had children with anyone else. This had to be an error. But something in Eleanor Spencer's voice, that brittle certainty, made him grab his keys. Lakewood Academy was a 30-minute drive through midday traffic. Clint's mind raced through possibilities. Identity theft? A scam? Some kind of elaborate prank? His hands tightened on the steering wheel as he navigated the tree-lined streets leading to the exclusive private school. The principal's office smelled like old books and lemon polish. Eleanor Spencer stood as he entered, a severe woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. "Mr. McMahon, thank you for coming." Then he saw her. The girl sat in a chair against the wall, hunched over with her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. She was maybe 14 or 15, with dark hair that fell past her shoulders. When she looked up at the sound of his voice, Clint felt the floor tilt beneath him. She had his eyes, that specific shade of hazel green that came from his mother's side. The same slightly crooked nose he'd broken playing baseball in high school. The same widow's peak hairline. "Carrie," Eleanor said firmly, "your father is here." The girl's tear-stained face crumpled. "Daddy, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. They were saying things about Mom, and I just—" Clint held up a hand, his voice steady despite the earthquake in his chest. "Miss Spencer, can I speak with you privately?" Eleanor glanced at Carrie, then nodded. "Carrie, wait outside my office." The girl fled, and Clint heard her collapse onto the bench in the hallway, still crying. "Miss Spencer," Clint said carefully, "I need you to explain what's happening here. I've been married for 12 years. I have no children. I've never met that girl before in my life." Eleanor's expression shifted from stern to confused. She pulled a file from her desk. "Carrie McMahon, age 15, enrolled here 3 months ago. Emergency contact and father listed as Clint McMahon, McMahon Design Group." She showed him the registration form. That was his signature, or perfect forgery. "And the mother?" Clint asked, his voice dangerous. Eleanor checked the file. "Kathleen McMahon. She filled out all the enrollment paperwork, paid the tuition in full." Kathleen, his wife. "What did Carrie do?" Clint asked. "She broke another student's nose. The girl had been bullying her, apparently making comments about her mother's reputation. Carrie snapped during lunch and attacked her. It's a zero-tolerance situation. Carrie is expelled, effective immediately." Clint nodded slowly, his mind working through scenarios like an architect calculating load-bearing walls. "I'll take her home." "Thank you, Miss Spencer." In the hallway, Carrie stood as he approached. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. This girl was his daughter. But how? "Get in the car," he said quietly. She followed him to the parking lot without speaking. Once they were both inside his BMW, doors closed, Clint turned to face her. "I'm going to ask you questions, and I need honest answers. Can you do that?" Carrie nodded, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. "How old are you?" 15. "My birthday is December 3rd. Clint did the math. 15 years ago, December, that would put conception around March. 16 years ago, March 2009. The architecture conference in Portland. The memory hit him like a physical blow. He'd been 32, single, focused on building his career. There had been a woman at the hotel bar after the final day of presentations. They'd talked about design theory and urban planning. Too many drinks. One night, he'd never got her name. She'd been gone in the morning. "Your mother," Clint said. "What's her name?" "Kathleen McMahon. She said you guys got married later, after I was born. And before I was your father." "What was your mother's last name?" Carrie's brow furrowed. I don't know. She never talks about before you guys got married." Clint pulled out his phone and opened his photo gallery. He found a picture from last month, Kathleen at a charity gala, wearing a red dress. He showed it to Carrie. "Is this your mother?" Carrie shook her head. "No, I've never seen her before." Clint's jaw clenched. "Describe your mother to me." "She's blonde, really pretty. She works at a doctor's office downtown. She's great usually, but lately she's been stressed about money." "Not Kathleen. Someone else entirely." "Where do you live, Carrie?" She gave him an address in a middle-class neighborhood south of the city. Not anywhere near his house. "I'm going to take you home now," Clint said, starting the engine. "And I'm going to meet your mother." The drive took 25 minutes. Carrie directed him to a modest 2-story house with vinyl siding and an overgrown lawn. A silver Honda sat in the driveway. The woman who answered the door was indeed blonde and attractive, probably in her late 30s. When she saw Clint, her face went white. "You," she whispered. "Me," Clint confirmed. "I think we need to talk." "Carrie, go to your room." The woman, whose name, he would learn, was Frances Carlson, led him inside with trembling hands. Chapter 2. Pieces of the Puzzle. Frances Carlson led Clint to a living room decorated with discount furniture and family photos. He noted Carrie's face appearing in frames from infancy through recent years, always with Frances, never with a father figure. "I didn't know," Frances said before he could speak. She collapsed onto the couch, hands shaking. "I swear to God, I didn't know any of this was happening." "Start from the beginning," Clint said, remaining standing. Frances took a breath. "Portland, March 2009. The Riverside Hotel. I remember. I was there for a medical administration conference. You were charming. Funny. We talked for hours. And then..." She gestured helplessly. "You were gone in the morning. I didn't even know your last name. I tried to find you, but there were 300 architects at that conference. And you got pregnant. I found out 6 weeks later. I decided to keep her, raised her alone. It wasn't easy, but we managed." Frances looked at him with something between anger and desperation. "I never asked you for anything because I couldn't find you. Do you understand? I looked. I tried. But you just disappeared." Clint studied her. She seemed genuine. "So what changed? Why is Carrie enrolled at Lakewood Academy with my name as her father? That school costs $40,000 a year." Frances's face crumpled. "I didn't enroll her. That's what I'm trying to tell you. 3 months ago, this woman showed up at my door. She knew everything. Your name, my name, Carrie's name. She said her name was Kathleen McMahon and that she was your wife." Clint's blood ran cold. "She had photos of you, proof that you were successful, wealthy. She said..." Frances's voice broke. "She said you'd finally acknowledged Carrie as your daughter and wanted to give her the life she deserved. She said you were too busy to reach out yourself, but you'd authorized her to handle everything. She enrolled Carrie at Lakewood, paid the tuition, said you'd be involved when your schedule allowed. And you believed her. She had documents, registration papers with your signature, bank statements showing the tuition payments coming from an account with your name on it. She seemed so legitimate. And Carrie was so happy, finally having a father who cared, even if he was busy. I thought..." Frances wiped her eyes. "I thought maybe you'd found us somehow and wanted to help." Clint pulled out his phone and showed Frances the photo of Kathleen at the gala. "Is this the woman?" Frances nodded immediately. "Yes, that's her." The pieces were sliding into place, but the picture they formed made no sense. Clint sat down heavily in the chair across from Frances. "My wife's name is Kathleen McMahon," he said slowly. "We've been married 12 years. We don't have children. She's never mentioned you or Carrie. And I swear on my life, I knew nothing about any of this until 2 hours ago when the school called me." Frances stared at him. "But the tuition, the papers, she said it was all from you." "It wasn't." They sat in silence, both trying to untangle the knot of deception. Why would your wife do this? Francis finally asked. That was the question. Clint stood and paced the small living room. Kathleen earned a good salary as a marketing executive, but not enough to casually spend $40,000 on a random teenager's education. Where had the money come from? I need to see everything, Clint said. Every document Kathleen gave you. Every email. Every text message. Francis retrieved a folder from a desk in the corner. Inside were enrollment forms, tuition receipts, and printouts of emails, all bearing his forged signature and details about his life that only someone close to him would know. Clint photographed everything with his phone. There's something else, Francis said quietly. Last week, Kathleen came by again. She seemed different, nervous. She said there might be some complications and that I should be prepared for Carrie to maybe switch schools. She asked if I had somewhere Carrie could stay for a while, away from Seattle. She made it sound like you were having business problems, might need to keep a low profile. Did she give any specifics? No, but she asked me to sign some papers. I didn't understand them, something about custody arrangements and financial responsibility. She said it was just to protect Carrie if things got complicated with your business. Alarm bells rang in Clint's head. Do you have copies? She said she'd send them, but she never did. Clint stood. Francis, I know this is difficult to hear, but you and Carrie are being used in something. I don't know what yet, but I'm going to find out. He pulled out a business card. This is my personal cell number. Don't tell anyone I was here. If Kathleen, my wife, contacts you again, you call me immediately. Can you do that? Francis took the card with shaking hands. Is Carrie really your daughter? Clint looked toward the stairs where Carrie had disappeared. Genetically? Almost certainly. But I didn't know she existed until today. I would have. He stopped, emotions threatening to overwhelm his calculated control. I would have been there. If I'd known. What are you going to do? Find out what my wife is really up to. And keep you and Carrie safe while I do it. He left Francis his information and a promise to be in touch. As he drove away from the modest house, Clint's mind was already 3 steps ahead. Kathleen had forged his signature, enrolled a child he didn't know he had in an expensive school, paid substantial tuition from God knows where, and was preparing Francis to take custody of Carrie in case of complications. This wasn't benevolence. This was a setup. Clint pulled over 2 blocks away and made a call. Max, it's Clint. I need your help with something. Can you meet me at Murphy's in an hour? And Max, this one's going to be complicated. Max Jameson had been his friend since college, a software engineer who'd built 3 successful startups and sold them all before 40. More importantly, Max had the kind of analytical mind that could spot patterns others missed. At Murphy's Pub, Clint laid out everything over 2 whiskeys neither of them touched. Max listened without interrupting, his angular face growing increasingly concerned. When Clint finished, Max leaned back and let out a low whistle. Your wife found your secret daughter and enrolled her in private school out of the goodness of her heart, while forging your signature and lying to everyone involved. That's the story so far. Clint, this is a con. A big one. The question is, what's the end game? That's what I need to figure out. Max pulled out his laptop. Give me 24 hours. I'll run financials on Kathleen, trace the tuition payments, see what I can dig up. In the meantime, you need to act normal at home. Don't let her know you're onto anything. Clint checked his watch. 6:30. Kathleen would be expecting him home for dinner. This is going to be harder than designing a skyscraper. Yeah, but the foundation's the same. You need to understand the structure before you know where to apply pressure. Max's expression turned serious. Clint, if she's forging documents and manipulating people, she's either desperate or planning something major. Maybe both. Watch her back. Clint drove home to the house he'd designed himself, a modern masterpiece of glass and wood overlooking Lake Washington. Kathleen's Mercedes was in the garage. Through the kitchen window, he could see her moving around, preparing dinner like she did every Tuesday. 12 years. How much of it had been real? He took a breath, locked away his anger, and walked inside. Chapter 3. The Mask. Hey, honey, you're late. Kathleen appeared from the kitchen, still beautiful at 40, her auburn hair swept up in a casual bun. She kissed his cheek. Rough day. Project complications, Clint said smoothly. You know how clients can be. Over dinner, salmon, asparagus, wild rice, they talked about normal things. Her marketing campaign for a new restaurant chain. His meetings with contractors. The weather. Surface conversations that had become their routine over the past year. Clint watched her carefully. Kathleen was animated, engaged, showing no signs of guilt or stress. Either she was innocent or she was a masterful actress. I was thinking, Kathleen said as she cleared the plates. Maybe we should take a trip? The San Juan Islands, like we used to? You've been working so hard, and I feel like we haven't really connected in a while. That sounds nice. When were you thinking? Next month? I can request the time off. Next month? What happened next month? Was that when whatever she was planning would unfold? Let me check my schedule, Clint said. After dinner, Kathleen retreated to her home office to work on presentations. Clint went to his own study, closed the door, and opened his laptop. He'd met Kathleen at a gallery opening 13 years ago. She'd been working for a small marketing firm. He'd just landed his first major commission. Their courtship had been whirlwind, 6 months from first date to engagement. She'd supported his growing business, been understanding about the long hours, fit perfectly into his life. Or had she engineered her way into it? Clint pulled up their financial records. They had a joint checking account for household expenses, but maintained separate accounts for personal spending, an arrangement Kathleen had suggested early in their marriage, saying she valued her independence. Their joint account showed normal activity: mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance. Nothing unusual, but that meant the $40,000 for Carrie's tuition had come from somewhere else. His phone buzzed with a text from Max. Found something. Tomorrow morning, my place. 9 a.m. Bring coffee. Clint barely slept that night. Kathleen was pressed against him in bed, her breathing soft and steady. He stared at the ceiling, thinking about Francis and Carrie, about forged documents and mysterious payments, about what could drive someone to orchestrate such an elaborate deception. At 9 the next morning, Clint stood in Max's downtown loft with 2 cups of coffee and a sense of impending disaster. Max's workspace was organized chaos: 3 monitors, server racks, and enough computing power to run a small country. He took the coffee without looking up. Your wife, Max said, is in serious financial trouble. He pulled up screens showing bank records, credit reports, loan documents. She's got 6 credit cards maxed out to the tune of $200,000. Personal loans from 3 different banks totaling another $150,000. A line of credit against her car that's about to default. Clint felt his stomach drop. How did I not know this? Because it's all hidden in personal accounts you don't have access to. She's been very careful. Max pulled up another screen. But here's where it gets interesting. 6 months ago, she opened a new bank account. That's where the tuition payments for Carrie came from. Where the money come from? That's the question. Because I can't find the source. The deposits are cash, made at different branches around the city. $40,000, deposited over 2 months, then transferred directly to Lakewood Academy. $40,000 in cash? Where would Kathleen get that kind of money? Either she's dealing drugs, Max said, or someone gave it to her. But that's not even the weird part. He pulled up a document. 3 weeks ago, she met with a lawyer. Carlton McCabe, estate planning specialist. Clint knew that name. Carlton McCabe handled high net worth clients, people planning complex trusts and inheritance strategies. Why would Kathleen need estate planning? We already have wills. Max's expression was grim. I can't access the details of her meeting, but I made a call to a friend who works at that firm. Kathleen inquired about life insurance policies and beneficiary designations, specifically about what happens to benefits if a spouse dies suddenly. The room seemed to tilt. You're saying she's planning to kill me? I'm saying she's exploring scenarios where you're dead. Whether she's planning it or just preparing for it, I don't know. But combined with everything else, Max met his eyes. Clint, you need to consider the possibility that this whole thing with Carrie is about setting up a motive or creating a situation that benefits Kathleen when you're gone. Clint sat down heavily. His mind raced through the implications. Carrie appears, claiming to be his daughter. Kathleen helps by enrolling her in school, forging his signature. If the truth came out publicly, it would be a scandal, successful architect with a secret love child. His reputation would take a hit. His business might suffer. But worse, if something happened to him and Carrie was legally established as his daughter, she'd be entitled to part of his estate, which meant Francis would control a significant portion of his wealth as Carrie's legal guardian, unless Kathleen had gotten Francis to sign custody documents. The papers Francis mentioned custody arrangements and financial responsibility. If Kathleen had Francis sign over custody of Carrie, and then Clint died, Kathleen would control Carrie's inheritance as her legal guardian. Add in life insurance policies, and Kathleen could pay off her debts, and then some. She's staging a con, Clint said slowly. Carrie is real, my actual daughter, but Kathleen's using her as a chess piece. She establishes Carrie's paternity, gets Francis to sign over custody. Then I have an unfortunate accident. Carrie inherits. Kathleen controls the inheritance as her guardian and pays off her $350,000 in debt with plenty left over. Max finished. Hell of a plan. Except she doesn't know that I know. Max grinned, the same expression he'd worn before launching each of his startups. So what's our move? Clint stood, his mind already assembling the pieces. First, I need proof. Real evidence that will hold up. Second, I need to protect Carrie and Francis. They're victims in this. Third, I need to figure out who gave Kathleen that $40,000 in cash. You think someone's helping her? I think someone's orchestrating this. Kathleen's smart, but this level of planning? The forged documents, the legal angles, the timing? She didn't come up with this alone. I'll keep digging into the financials, Max said. What are you going to do? Clint thought about his daughter, a girl he'd just learned existed, crying in a principal's office. About Francis, manipulated and frightened. About Kathleen, sleeping next to him while plotting his death. I'm going to play along, Clint said. Let Kathleen think everything's going according to plan. And while she's setting her trap, I'm going to build a better one. Chapter 4, Digging Deeper. Clint hired Bruce Everett 3 days later. Bruce ran a private investigation firm that specialized in domestic cases, discreet, thorough, and expensive. They met at a coffee shop in Tacoma, far enough from Seattle that no one would recognize Clint. Bruce was a compact man in his 50s with gray hair and the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades watching people at their worst. He listened to Clint's story without judgment, taking occasional notes on a leather pad. You want surveillance on your wife, Bruce said when Clint finished. I want to know where that cash came from, who she's meeting with, and what she's planning. I need evidence that will stand up in court. Court meaning divorce, or court meaning criminal charges? Could be both, depending on what you find. Bruce quoted a daily rate that made Clint wince, even with his wealth. But given what's at stake, your life, potentially, I'd say it's a bargain. I can start tomorrow. One more thing, Clint said. My daughter, Carrie. She's 15, thinks I'm a deadbeat dad who's finally paying attention. I need someone to keep an eye on her and her mother, make sure they're safe. Kathleen might decide they're loose ends. Bruce's expression darkened. You think she'd hurt the girl? I think she'd do whatever it takes to close the deal. And right now, Carrie and Francis are witnesses to fraud. Maybe worse. I'll assign my best surveillance team. They won't know they're being watched. Over the next 10 days, Clint lived a double life. At home, he was the attentive husband, discussing Kathleen's work projects and planning their San Juan Islands trip. At the office, he buried himself in work while waiting for Bruce's reports. Meanwhile, Max dug deeper into the financial trail. He discovered that Kathleen had taken out a life insurance policy on Clint 3 months earlier, a $1 million policy she'd forged his signature to authorize. The beneficiary, Kathleen McMahon. She's got you insured like a prize racehorse, Max said over lunch at a waterfront restaurant. Along with your existing policies, she's looking at a $3 million payday when you die. Not to mention my share of the firm, the house, the investment accounts, Clint added. She could clear $5 million easy. How's she planning to do it? Make it look like an accident. Clint had been thinking about that. The San Juan Islands trip. Next month. Remote location, ocean access, plenty of places for a tragic boating accident or hiking mishap. You're still planning to go? I'm planning to let her think I'm going. By then, I'll have enough evidence to bury her. Bruce's first major report came on day 8. He'd followed Kathleen to a cafe in Bellevue, where she'd met with a man Bruce had photographed and identified, Randall Austin. Clint stared at the photos spread across his desk. Randall Austin was 45, conventionally handsome in a slick way, with styled hair and expensive clothes. In the photos, he and Kathleen sat close together, her hand on his arm, their body language intimate. He's a pharmaceutical sales rep, Bruce explained. Makes good money, but he's also got a gambling problem. Owes about $200,000 to some very unpleasant people. So he and Kathleen are in debt, and I'm their solution. It gets better. Bruce pulled out more photos. I followed Austin after his meeting with your wife. He drove to an office building downtown and met with this man. The next photo showed Randall talking with another man in a parking garage. The second man was balding, nervous-looking, holding a briefcase. That's Lester Clayton. He's a lawyer, the disbarred kind. Lost his license 5 years ago for fabricating evidence in a divorce case. Now he works in the gray areas. Document forgery, false identities, helping people disappear. The pieces click together. Lester forged my signature on the school documents. Probably the insurance policy, too. That'd be my guess. And here's the timeline. Kathleen starts her affair with Randall about 18 months ago. Right around when you told her you wanted to expand the business, which would have meant more wealth down the line, but also more work in the present. 6 months later, they're both drowning in debt. They need a solution. So they come up with the perfect crime, Clint said. Frame me as a deadbeat dad who abandoned his kid, establish Carrie as my legal daughter, get custody through fraudulent means, kill me, and split my estate. Except they needed startup capital to make it work. The $40,000 for tuition, money to pay Lester, living expenses while they set everything up. Bruce pulled out bank statements. I tracked the cash deposits. Randall made them, not Kathleen. He got the money from a business partner, a guy he imports pharmaceuticals with. They've got a side operation bringing in prescription drugs from Canada and selling them under the table. Illegal drug sales funded my fake death. Life's funny that way. Bruce's expression turned serious. But here's the part that should really worry you. I checked Austin's phone records. He's sloppy about security. 2 days ago, he called someone at Lakewood Academy. Didn't talk long, but I got the number and traced it. Who? Eleanor Spencer's administrative assistant. And yesterday, Carrie got expelled. Clint felt ice in his veins. They orchestrated the expulsion. The bullying was real. I confirmed that with the other girl's parents. But I think they manipulated the situation, made sure it escalated into violence. They wanted Carrie expelled so you'd get that phone call. They wanted you to meet your daughter under the worst possible circumstances, to establish the relationship. So when I die, Carrie's established as my legal daughter. But why would they want me to know about her before I die? Bruce leaned back in his chair. Because if you die and then a secret daughter appears, it looks suspicious. But if you've already acknowledged her, already started supporting her, even if it's through your wife, then her inheritance claim is much stronger. No questions about DNA, no legal battles. Just a tragic situation where a father dies after finally connecting with his kid. So, I was supposed to meet Carrie, feel guilty about abandoning her, and start a relationship. Maybe even change my will to include her, and then have that tragic accident in the San Juan Islands. But here's the good news. Bruce pulled out a USB drive. I've got everything documented. Photos of Kathleen and Randall, financial records showing the illegal drug money, audio recordings of their conversations. Randall's terrible about OpSEC, leaves his phone unlocked everywhere, and connections to Lester Clayton. It's enough to charge them with conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, and possibly attempted murder if they make a move. Clint took the drive, his mind already planning the next steps. I need more time. I want to know if there are other players involved. And I want to make sure Carrie and Francis are completely protected before this blows up. How long? 2 weeks. Can you keep surveillance going? Your money, your timeline. But Clint? These people are planning to kill you. 2 weeks is a long time to sleep next to someone who wants you dead. I'll be careful, and I'll make sure I'm never anywhere vulnerable with her. That night, Clint lay awake again, listening to Kathleen breathe beside him. He thought about the first time they'd met, the whirlwind romance, the wedding where she'd cried happy tears. Had any of it been real? Or had she been playing a long game from the start? His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Is my dad really you? Carrie. Francis must have given her his number. He texted back, yes. It's complicated, but yes. We'll talk soon. Are you okay? I'm scared. Mom says we might have to move. She's acting weird. You're safe. I promise. Just do what your mom says and don't tell anyone we're talking. Okay. Okay. Will I see you again? Clint stared at the ceiling, thinking about a daughter he'd just learned existed. A daughter caught in the crossfire of someone else's greed. Yes. Soon. I promise. He put the phone away and formulated the next phase of his plan. Chapter 5. The Ally. Clint called Carlton McCabe the next morning from his car, parked in a lot across from a construction site. The lawyer answered on the third ring. Carlton, it's Clint McMahon. We met at the Architectural Digest Gala last year. Of course, Clint. What can I do for you? My wife had a consultation with you recently. I'd like to discuss our estate planning. There was a pause. Carlton was good at his job. He heard the weight behind the casual words. I'm free this afternoon. 3 o'clock. Carlton's office was in a glass tower downtown, tastefully decorated with art that spoke of old money and discretion. The lawyer himself was 60, distinguished, with silver hair and the calm demeanor of someone who'd handled countless sensitive situations. Before we begin, Carlton said, I should mention that attorney-client privilege applies to your wife's consultation. I can't reveal what we discussed. I'm not asking you to, Clint said. He pulled out the USB drive from Bruce and set it on the desk. I'm asking you to help me stop her from committing murder. Carlton's eyebrows rose. That's quite an accusation. It's quite a situation. Clint spent the next hour laying out everything he'd discovered. Carlton listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly grave. When Clint finished, Carlton sat back in his leather chair. Your wife came to me asking about estate structures and life insurance benefits in the event of your death. She claimed it was standard planning, given your wealth. I had no reason to suspect otherwise. He looked at the USB drive. May I? Everything's documented. Carlton reviewed the files on his laptop, his face impassive. Finally, he looked up. This is conspiracy to commit fraud and possibly murder. You need to go to the police. Not yet. The moment I do, Kathleen and Randall will lawyer up and the whole thing becomes he said, she said. I need them to make their move, to show clear intent to harm me. Only then can I guarantee they'll go to prison. That's extraordinarily dangerous. That's why I need a lawyer. I need someone who can protect my assets, prepare documentation that will stand up in court, and act quickly when this goes public. I also need someone to help me structure a trust for Carrie that Kathleen can never touch. Carlton was quiet for a long moment. You understand, I'd be working against your wife's interests? My wife is planning to kill me. I don't care about her interests. Fair point. Carlton pulled out a legal pad. Let's talk about what you need. They spent 3 hours building a legal fortress. Carlton would prepare new documentation naming Carrie as Clint's daughter and establishing a trust for her education and care, with Francis as trustee until Carrie turned 18. He'd also prepare divorce papers, restraining orders, and criminal complaints ready to file the moment Clint gave the word. I'll have everything ready in 1 week, Carlton said. But Clint, you're taking a tremendous risk letting this play out. I know. But I need Kathleen to think she's winning right up until the moment I pull the trapdoor. Clint's next stop was Francis's house. She answered, looking exhausted, worry lines creasing her forehead. Is Carrie home? Clint asked. School, well, her new school. I had to transfer her to the public school district after the expulsion. She's struggling. I know. That's part of why I'm here. Clint came inside. Francis, I need to explain what's really happening. He told her everything. Kathleen's affair, the conspiracy, the plan to kill him, the fake custody documents. Francis's face went through shock, horror, and finally anger. She used my daughter. She used Carrie as bait in a murder plot. Yes, and now I need your help to protect both of you and take her down. Whatever you need. First, I need you to be careful. Don't trust anything Kathleen tells you. If she contacts you again, record it if you can and call me immediately. Second, I need you to sign these. He pulled out document Carlton had prepared, Real custody documents that ensure if anything happens to me, Carrie stays with you and has access to a trust I'm setting up. You'd be the trustee. Frances's hand shook as she read through the papers. You're setting up a trust for her? She's my daughter. I missed 15 years, but I won't miss her future. Clint met her eyes. I'm sorry for all of this. If I'd known about you, about Carrie, you would have been there, Frances finished. I know. I can see that now. She looks like you know. Not just physically. The way she thinks about things, solves problems. She's an architect in the making. Something warm and painful squeezed Clint's chest. A daughter. He had a daughter. When this is over, he said, I'd like to get to know her. Really know her. If that's okay with you. Frances smiled for the first time since he'd arrived. I think she'd like that. They spent another hour discussing safety protocols. Clint gave Frances a prepaid phone to use only for contacting him. He arranged for Bruce's team to maintain surveillance on her house. He transferred $50,000 to her account for expenses and lawyer fees if you need them. I can't accept this, Frances protested. You can and you will. This is my fault. I brought this into your life. Let me protect you. Before he left, Carrie came home from school. She froze when she saw Clint in the living room. Hey, Clint said, suddenly unsure. How did you talk to a daughter you just discovered? Hey, Carrie set down her backpack, studying him with those familiar eyes. Are you really my dad? Yeah, I really am. Did you know about me before? Before the school thing? Clint sat down, gesturing for her to join him. No, I swear I didn't. Your mom and I met one night a long time ago, and I left the next morning like an idiot. I didn't even know her name. If I had known about you. He struggled for words. I would have been there. Every birthday, every school play, every important moment. I missed all of that, and I can never get it back. But I'm here now. Carrie's eyes filled with tears. That lady, Kathleen, she said you didn't want people to know about me because it would hurt your business. Kathleen lied. About a lot of things. She's not a good person, Carrie. She seemed nice, Carrie said softly. I know. She fooled me for 12 years. They talked for another hour. Carrie told him about school, her friends, her love of drawing and design. Clint showed her photos of some of his buildings, explained how architecture worked, promised to take her to see his projects. When he finally left, driving back toward downtown and the life he was about to burn down, Clint felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose beyond work. He had a daughter to protect, and he'd burn the world down before he let Kathleen and Randall hurt her. His phone rang. Max, I found something else, Max said without preamble. Randall Austin has a third partner, someone who's been helping with the pharmaceutical smuggling. Boo, a shipping coordinator named Guillermo Shoemaker. Works at the Port of Seattle. He's been helping Randall get containers through customs without inspection. And here's the interesting part. Guillermo has a boat. A 40-foot yacht he keeps at the marina. Clint felt his pulse quicken. The San Juan Islands. That's what I thought. I pulled harbor records. Guillermo's been mapping routes through the islands for the past month. Routes that pass through some very remote areas with deep water. They're not just planning a boating accident. They're planning to make my body disappear. Looks that way. I'm sending you the route maps. Clint, you can't get on that boat. I'm not planning to, but I'm planning to make them think I will. Chapter 6. The Spring Tightens. 2 weeks before the planned San Juan Islands trip, Kathleen became increasingly affectionate. She cooked Clint's favorite meals, suggested they watch movies cuddled on the couch, initiated sex more often than she had in the past year. She was sealing the deal, making sure he'd go on the trip. I can't wait to get away, Kathleen said one evening, her head on his shoulder. Just the two of us. No work, no stress. Like it used to be. It'll be good, Clint agreed, stroking her hair while his mind calculated angles and evidence. Bruce's surveillance had captured multiple meetings between Kathleen and Randall. In one recording, they discussed timing. The third day, Randall said, "We'll be far enough out that it'll take hours for anyone to respond. Guillermo will make it quick, hit him on the head, weight him down, deep water. Sharks will do the rest. And if they find the body..." Kathleen's voice. "They won't. But even if they do, it'll look like he fell overboard and drowned. Tragic accident. You'll be the grieving widow. What about Carrie? What about her? She's just a kid. She'll believe what we tell her. And Francis will be grateful for the trust fund. Everyone wins. Listening to the recording in Carlton's office, Clint felt his anger crystallize into something cold and precise. They weren't just planning to kill him. They were planning to use his daughter's grief as cover. That's conspiracy to commit murder, Carlton said. You have enough to go to the police now. Not yet. I need them to actually try it. Otherwise, a good lawyer could argue they were just fantasizing, not planning. I need them on that boat, making their move with multiple witnesses. You're insane. Maybe. But I'm right. Carlton sighed. Fine. What's your plan? Clint laid it out. Carlton would be in the San Juan Islands the same weekend, staying at a resort on San Juan Island itself. Bruce and his team would also be in the area, posing as tourists. Max would monitor all communications remotely. The Coast Guard would be notified to have boats in the area, ready to respond to an emergency beacon. And you'll be wearing a wire, Carlton added. Obviously. And carrying a weapon? I'd rather not kill my wife if I can avoid it. Clint, if they come at you with intent to kill, you have the right to defend yourself. I know, but I want them alive to face justice. I want Carrie to know her father didn't become a murderer, even when he had cause. The week before the trip, Kathleen sat Clint down with travel documents. I've got everything planned. We'll drive up Friday, take the ferry Saturday morning. Guillermo, he's Randall's friend, remember, has offered to let us use his boat for the day. We can explore the islands, have lunch at a secluded beach. It'll be perfect. Randall's friend. She wasn't even hiding the connection anymore, confident that Clint suspected nothing. Sounds great, Clint said, signing the documents she'd prepared. A last will and testament update that would make Kathleen his primary beneficiary and name Carrie as a secondary beneficiary. Of course, Kathleen didn't know that Carlton had already filed a different will, one that protected everything and designated Kathleen would get nothing. 3 days before the trip, Carrie texted him, Mom's acting weird again. She keeps asking me questions about you. Like if I'd be sad if something happened to you. Clint's blood ran cold. What did you tell her? I just met you, so I don't know. Was that wrong? No, that was perfect. Just be careful. And remember what we talked about. He prepared Carrie for the possibility that things might get dangerous. Told her to stay with Francis, keep her phone charged, and call Bruce's emergency number if anything felt wrong. 2 days before the trip, Bruce called with an urgent update. Kathleen just met with a woman named Beatrice Camp. She's a life insurance claim specialist, former, actually. Got fired for approving fraudulent claims. Now she freelances, helping people file claims that should be denied. So Kathleen's already preparing to file the insurance claim before I'm even dead. Exactly. Beatrice will fast-track the claim, make sure it pays out before any investigation gets too deep. By the time anyone questions the circumstances, Kathleen and Randall will have split the money and disappeared. Do you have this documented? Video and audio. Kathleen offered Beatrice 20% of the payout to guarantee the claim goes through within 2 weeks of your death. Perfect. Add it to the evidence file. The night before the trip, Clint couldn't sleep. He lay in bed next to Kathleen, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Somewhere in the past 12 years, the woman he'd married had become a stranger. Or maybe she'd always been a stranger, and he'd just been too blind to see it. At 3 a.m., he got up and went to his study. He wrote a letter to Carrie, sealed it, and gave it to Max with instructions to deliver it if something went wrong. Then he wrote letters to his employees, his business partner, his parents. You're not going to die, Max said, reviewing the plan one last time. You've got 5 different backup systems and a dozen people watching your back. I know, but just in case, you could still walk away. Go to the police now. Show them everything we have. Clint shook his head. If I do that, Kathleen and Randall get good lawyers, claim they were joking or misunderstood. They might beat the charges. And even if they don't, Carrie would never know the full truth. She'd always wonder if her dad overreacted, if maybe Kathleen really was just trying to help. So, this is about Carrie? This is about making sure my daughter knows her father fought for her. But he didn't roll over when people tried to use her as a pawn. Clint met his friend's eyes. This is about making sure she knows she's worth fighting for. Max gripped his shoulder. Then let's make sure you survive to tell her that yourself. Friday morning, Clint loaded their bags into Kathleen's Mercedes. She was cheerful, humming as she double-checked their reservations. They drove north through traffic, talking about nothing, while Clint's backup team followed at a distance. At the hotel in Anacortes, they had dinner at a waterfront restaurant. Kathleen ordered wine, her hand on his thigh under the table. "Tomorrow's going to be wonderful," she said. "I'm looking forward to it," Clint replied, meaning every word. Because tomorrow, one way or another, this would end. Chapter 7. The Trap Springs. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright, perfect weather for a murder. Clint woke before Kathleen, checked his phone, and found messages from his team. Bruce and his crew were in position around the marina. Carlton was checked into a resort on San Juan Island with lawyers and Coast Guard contacts on standby. Max had confirmed all tracking devices were active. The wire concealed in Clint's belt, the GPS beacon in his watch, the backup tracker sewn into his jacket. Kathleen stretched beside him, smiled, and kissed him softly. "Ready for an adventure?" "Always." They took the ferry to San Juan Island, Kathleen pointing out landmarks and talking about the resort spa she wanted to visit next month. Playing the role of excited wife on a romantic getaway. Clint played along, taking photos of her against the water, smiling for her selfies, being the attentive husband. At the marina, Guillermo Shoemaker waited by a sleek yacht. He was a large man, mid-40s, with the weathered look of someone who spent his life around water. He greeted them with a too-wide smile. "Clint, finally meet you. Randall's told me so much." Clint shook his hand, noting the calluses and the faint smell of marijuana. "Thanks for letting us use your boat." "No problem." Kathleen said you wanted to see some of the remote islands. "I've got the perfect route planned." They boarded the yacht. Guillermo cast off while Kathleen went below to check out the cabin. Clint stood at the rail, watching the marina recede, and pressed the activation button on his wire. From this point on, everything would be recorded. They motored out of the harbor, passing smaller islands and rocky outcroppings. The water was deep blue-green, beautiful and cold. Guillermo kept up a steady commentary about the area, while Kathleen brought out sandwiches and drinks. "Here," she said, handing Clint a beer. "Your favorite." Clint pretended to drink, but barely touched it. He'd anticipated they might try to drug him first. An hour into the trip, Guillermo steered them toward a remote stretch of water between two uninhabited islands. The nearest other boats were dots on the horizon. "This is perfect," Kathleen said. She was standing close to the rail, her body language tense despite her smile. Clint glanced at his watch. The tracking signal was strong. His team would know exactly where they were. "So, Clint," Guillermo said, cutting the engine. The sudden silence was deafening except for the lap of waves against the hull. "Kathleen tells me you're a successful guy. Architecture, right?" "That's right. Must be nice having that kind of money. I work hard for it." Sure. Guillermo leaned against the console. "But you know what they say, easy come, easy go." Kathleen moved behind Clint. He felt her presence at his back, too close. "Actually," Clint said, turning to face them both, "I think the expression is easy come, easy go. But in this case, nothing about my success was easy. I built my firm from nothing. 15 years of 18-hour days, sacrifices, calculated risks. That's going to make this so much sweeter," Randall Austin said, emerging from below deck. Clint let his surprise show. Not hard, since he'd expected Randall to already be on the islands, not hiding on the boat. "What the hell?" "Sorry, babe," Kathleen said, not sounding sorry at all. "Change of plans. We decided it would be better if Randall was here to help." The three of them formed a rough semicircle around Clint. Guillermo held a boat hook. Randall had pulled a gun from his waistband. Nothing fancy, just a snub-nosed revolver that would do the job at close range. "Here's how this is going to work," Randall said. "You're going to sign these documents." He pulled papers from his jacket. "Transfer of assets, life insurance beneficiary changes, trust arrangements for Carrie. All very legal, all witnessed by Guillermo and Kathleen. And if I refuse, then I shoot you, we weight down your body, and you disappear. Tragic boating accident. Kathleen inherits anyway, but it's cleaner if you cooperate." Your choice. Clint looked at Kathleen. 12 years. Did any of it mean anything? You were a mark, Kathleen said flatly. A good mark, nice guy, successful, trusting, but still just a mark. I saw you at that gallery, did my research, and positioned myself perfectly. You made it so easy, falling for the whirlwind romance. And Carrie, a lucky break. Randall found Francis while doing background on you. He's very thorough. We realized she was the perfect leverage. Secret love child, hidden scandal. You'd either pay to make her go away or die feeling guilty about abandoning her. Either way, we win. You used a 15-year-old girl as bait in a murder plot. We used available resources, Randall corrected. And she'll be fine. She gets a trust fund. Kathleen becomes her guardian. Everyone's happy. Well, except you. Clint looked at the gun, at the 3 people who'd conspired to kill him, and felt a cold satisfaction. They confessed everything. The Wire had captured it all. I have a counteroffer, Clint said. You're not in a position to negotiate, Guillermo growled. Actually, I am, because you've all been under surveillance for 2 weeks. Every meeting, every conversation, every step of your plan has been documented. You're being recorded right now, and the Coast Guard is 5 minutes away. The color drained from Kathleen's face. Randall's gun hand wavered. You're bluffing, he said. Am I? Clint tapped his watch. GPS tracker. Marine band radio beacon. 2-way audio feed. Say hi to Carlton McCabe, my lawyer, who's listening from San Juan Island. And to Bruce Everett, the private investigator who's been following all of you. Clint, we're receiving everything. Carlton's voice came through the watch speaker, tinny but clear. Coast Guard cutter is en route. ETA 4 minutes. That's not possible, Kathleen whispered. You got sloppy. Randall doesn't secure his phone. Guillermo brags about his drug smuggling operation to anyone who'll listen. And you, Kathleen, you forged my signature on legal documents. That's a federal crime. Adding conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, identity theft, and you're all looking at 20 years minimum. Randall's hand tightened on the gun. I'll shoot you right now. Go ahead. It'll just add murder to your charges. The recording proves I'm not a threat. You'll go from maybe beating the conspiracy charge to definite first-degree murder. He's right, Guillermo said, backing away. This is fucked. I'm not going down for murder. Shut up. Randall's desperation was palpable. He swung the gun toward Guillermo. We stick to the plan. We dump his body, clean the boat, no evidence. The Coast Guard is 3 minutes out, Carlton's voice said. I'd recommend everyone stay calm. Kathleen moved toward Randall. Baby, maybe we should. I said shut up. Randall turned the gun on her, his hand shaking. This was the moment of maximum danger. Clint assessed angles, distances. Randall was 6 feet away, gun pointed at Kathleen now. Guillermo was backing toward the stern. The boat rocked in waves. Randall, Clint said carefully, you're in a bad position, but it's not over yet. Put down the gun, cooperate, and maybe the prosecutor deals. But if you shoot someone, anyone, you'll die in prison. I'm already going to die in prison. I owe 200 grand to people who'll kill me if I don't pay. I'll pay it. Everyone froze. What? Randall said. Your gambling debt. 200,000. I'll pay it. Right now, if you put down the gun and surrender peacefully. Why would you do that? Because I don't want to watch you shoot someone, least of all my wife. Because I want Carrie to know this ended without more violence. Because, Clint took a breath. Because I understand desperation. You made terrible choices, but you're not a killer. Not yet. Don't become one. In the distance, the throb of engines grew louder. The Coast Guard was close. Randall's hand trembled. Tears ran down his face. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. The gun clattered to the deck. Clint kicked it away and immediately pulled out his phone, hitting the emergency beacon. Carlton, we're secure. Randall surrendered. Tell the Coast Guard to approach carefully. 2 Coast Guard cutters arrived 3 minutes later, along with a boat carrying Bruce and his team. Officers boarded the yacht with weapons drawn, but there was no resistance. Randall sat on the deck, sobbing. Guillermo was already shouting about wanting a lawyer. Kathleen stood at the rail, staring at the water, her expression blank. As they cuffed the 3 conspirators, Carlton arrived in another boat with a federal prosecutor and 2 FBI agents. "The recordings are perfect," Carlton said quietly to Clint. "Full confession of conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, forgery. They're done." Clint watched as Kathleen was led away. She didn't look at him. After 12 years of marriage, she walked out of his life without a word. "How do you feel?" Carlton asked. "Like I just survived something I shouldn't have had to." "You did good. Keeping calm, getting the full confession. Most men would have panicked. Most men haven't spent 15 years solving complex structural problems. This was just another puzzle." Clint's phone buzzed. A text from Carrie. "Are you okay? Mom called me, and she's freaking out." "I'm fine. I'll explain everything soon. Stay with your mom, Francis. You're safe." The Coast Guard gave Clint a ride back to San Juan Island. By evening, he was in a hotel room with Max, Carlton, and Bruce, reviewing everything that had happened. "Kathleen, Randall, and Guillermo are all in federal custody," Carlton reported. "They're being charged with conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, forgery, and about 6 other felonies. The prosecutor is confident of conviction. The recordings and evidence are irrefutable." "What about Carrie?" Clint asked. "Francis has custody, as per your documents. The trust is established, and I prepared a complete legal separation between Carrie and Kathleen. No way Kathleen can claim guardianship or access Carrie's funds. And Francis is okay?" Shaken but relieved. "She wants to talk to you." Clint called Francis. She answered on the first ring. "Oh my God, Clint. I saw the news. They're saying Kathleen tried to kill you. It's more complicated than that, but yes. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. If I hadn't—" "Francis, stop. None of this is your fault. You and Carrie are victims in this too. Kathleen used you both." Carrie's devastated. She thought Kathleen was nice, trying to help her. Now she's blaming herself. "Can I talk to her? Please?" There was rustling, then Carrie's voice. "Dad." The word hit him like a physical force. "Dad. Hey, kiddo. You doing okay? Everyone's saying that lady wanted to kill you because of me, that I'm the reason all this happened. Carrie, listen to me. You are not the reason. Kathleen was planning to kill me long before you came into the picture. She just tried to use you as part of her plan. You didn't do anything wrong. But if I hadn't existed, then I wouldn't have a daughter. And I'm really glad I do, even though we just met, even though everything's been crazy. I'm glad you exist, Carrie. Do you understand?" He heard her crying. "I'm sorry I got expelled. I'm not. If you hadn't, I might never have found out about you. And that would have been the real tragedy." They talked for another 20 minutes. Clint promised to visit soon, to start building the relationship they'd both missed. When they hung up, he felt exhausted and strangely at peace. "Now what?" Max asked. "Now," Clint said, "I make sure they all pay for what they tried to do." Chapter 8. Justice and Retribution. The criminal trial took 6 months. Kathleen, Randall, and Guillermo had separate lawyers, expensive ones, paid for by public defenders after their assets were seized as proceeds of criminal conspiracy. Clint attended every day, sitting in the gallery with Max and Carlton. Bruce testified about his surveillance. Forensic accountants testified about the fraudulent financial transactions. Lester Clayton, the disbarred lawyer, took a plea deal and testified about forging Clint's signatures. The prosecution presented the recordings from the boat. The jury listened in silence as Kathleen coldly explained how she'd positioned herself to marry Clint, how they'd planned to use Carrie as leverage, how they'd mapped out the murder. "You were just a mark," Kathleen's voice said in the recording. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge, a stern woman named Christina Grant, addressed each defendant in turn. "Ms. McMahon, you entered into a marriage with the sole intent of defrauding and ultimately murdering your spouse. You forged documents, manipulated a child, and showed absolutely no remorse. I sentence you to 30 years in federal prison." Kathleen's face remained blank. She didn't look at Clint. "Mr. Austin, you organized this conspiracy, recruited accomplices, and were prepared to commit murder for financial gain. I sentence you to 25 years in federal prison." Randall wept openly. "Mr. Shoemaker, You provided material support to this conspiracy and were prepared to help dispose of a body. I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison." Guillermo slumped in his chair. The judge looked at Clint. "Mr. McMahon, I want to commend you for your remarkable restraint and intelligence in handling this situation. Many men would have responded with violence. You responded with strategy and patience. Your daughter is lucky to have you." After the sentencing, reporters mobbed Clint outside the courthouse. He gave a brief statement. "Justice has been served. I'm grateful to everyone who helped bring these criminals to account. Now I'm going to focus on being a father to my daughter." But Clint's revenge didn't end with criminal convictions. He told Randall he'd pay off his gambling debts if Randall surrendered. He meant it, but not in the way Randall had hoped. Clint called in markers with business associates who knew people in Randall's world. The word went out. Randall Austin had cooperated with federal investigators, provided testimony that implicated others in his pharmaceutical smuggling operation. He was a snitch. In prison, snitches don't fare well. Randall would spend his sentence looking over his shoulder, isolated, vulnerable. It wasn't physical violence, but it was its own form of justice. For Kathleen, Clint ensured that every professional connection she'd made through their marriage was informed of her crimes. Her reputation in Seattle's business community was destroyed. Letters went to former clients, colleagues, friends. But the real punishment was simpler. Kathleen would spend 30 years in prison watching Clint live the life she tried to steal. He made sure the prison library subscribed to architecture magazines that featured his work, made sure news of his successes and his relationship with Carrie reached her. Living well, Clint decided, was indeed the best revenge. For Lester Clayton, the disbarred lawyer, Clint hired investigators to dig into every document Lester had ever forged. They found dozens of cases, divorces, custody battles, estate claims, all tainted by Lester's fraudulent work. Clint anonymously provided this information to the relevant courts. Lester's plea deal evaporated when prosecutors realized the scope of his crimes. He went from 3 years to 15. As for Beatrice Camp, the corrupt insurance specialist, she was charged as an accessory to fraud. She lost her remaining professional licenses and served 5 years. Guillermo's drug smuggling operation was dismantled. His partners, facing prosecution, blamed him for the investigation. His yacht was seized and auctioned. The proceeds went to victims of opioid addiction. 8 months after the trial, Clint sat in Carlton's office reviewing the last of the legal details. "The divorce is final," Carlton said. "Kathleen gets nothing. The house, the business, all assets remain yours. Carrie's trust is fully funded. $2 million for education and living expenses, with Francis as trustee. And a life insurance. Canceled. You're no longer insured by policies Kathleen could access." Clint nodded. "What about Francis? Is she set? The $50,000 you gave her, plus you're paying for Carrie's therapy and any future educational expenses. Francis says she doesn't need more, but I'd recommend establishing a college fund in your name." "Done. Make it $500,000. Carlton smiled. "You're a good man, Clint. I'm a man who had a daughter stolen from him by circumstances and almost had her used as a weapon. I'm making up for lost time." That evening, Clint drove to Francis's house. Carrie met him at the door. She'd grown 2 inches in the past months and looked more confident, less haunted. "Hey, Dad. Hey, kiddo. Ready for our architecture tour?" They'd established a routine. Twice a week, Clint took Carrie to see his projects or other buildings he admired. They discussed design principles, structural integrity, aesthetic choices. Carrie absorbed it all like a sponge. "I've been working on something," Carrie said as they drove toward downtown. She pulled out a sketchbook. "It's a design for a community center, for kids who don't have good home situations. I thought maybe someday." Clint pulled over to look at the sketches. They were rough, but showed real talent. The building design incorporated natural light, open spaces that could be used flexibly, and small private rooms for counseling. "This is good. Really good." "You think so? I think you have a future in this field if you want it." "But Carrie, and I mean this, you can do anything. Architecture, medicine, art, business. You get to choose your own path. I want to do what you do. Build things that help people." Clint felt his throat tighten. Then I'll teach you everything I know. They spent the evening sketching together at a cafe, Carrie asking questions, Clint explaining concepts. For the first time since that phone call from the principal, Clint felt something like peace. He'd lost 12 years of his marriage to a lie, but he'd gained a daughter and a future. Fair trade, he thought. Chapter 9. New Foundations. 1 year after the trial, Clint stood at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Francis Carlson Community Center, a facility designed to provide resources for single parents and their children. Carrie stood beside him, her design sketchbook clutched in her hands. "You sure about this?" Carrie asked, "Naming it after my mom? Your mom raised you alone for 15 years with no help and no support. She deserves to be honored." Clint smiled. Plus, she had to put up with me showing up unexpectedly and turning her life upside down. Francis approached, looking overwhelmed. "Clint, you didn't have to do this. I wanted to. This facility will help hundreds of families like yours. It seems right that your name is on it." The ceremony was small, just family, close friends, and a few reporters. Max gave a speech about community and second chances. Carlton talked about the importance of protecting vulnerable families. Carrie read a statement she'd written about resilience and hope. Clint watched his daughter speak with confidence and poise, and thought about the strange journey that had led them here. A phone call from principal, a conspiracy to commit murder, a daughter he'd never known existed, adversity he'd learned as an architect either weakened structures or made them stronger. The key was understanding where to add support, where to remove weight, and how to build foundations that could weather any storm. After the ceremony, Carrie pulled him aside. "I got accepted to summer architecture camp at Yale." "That's fantastic. And I've been thinking when I graduate high school, maybe I could work at your firm as an intern." Clint pulled her into a hug. "You got a job waiting whenever you want it. McMahon Design Group could use another McMahon." "McMahon Carlson," Carrie corrected. "I'm keeping both names. Mom earned her place, but you're my dad. I want both. McMahon Carlson it is." That evening, Clint hosted a dinner at his house now, free of Kathleen's presence. He'd redecorated, softened the modern edges with warmer colors and comfortable furniture, made it feel like a home instead of a showpiece. Francis, Carrie, Max, Bruce, and Carlton gathered around the dining table. They toasted successes, shared stories, and laughed. "So what's next for you?" Max asked Clint. "Any new projects?" "A few. There's a hospital wing in Portland, a museum in San Francisco, and Carrie and I are collaborating on a design for a youth shelter in Seattle." "Collaborating?" Francis raised her eyebrows. "Dad's teaching me professional architecture," Carrie explained. "And I'm teaching him how teenagers actually want spaces designed." "It's a fair trade," Clint agreed. After dinner, Carrie found Clint on the deck overlooking the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and orange. "Can I ask you something?" Carrie said. "Anything. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Kathleen's plan had worked? If you died?" Clint considered the question. "Sometimes. But then I remember that I didn't die. I fought back. I won. I got to meet you. So whatever hypothetical past might have been, this reality is better. Even though your marriage was a lie, even though you were almost murdered. Carrie, I was married to a woman who never loved me, who saw me as a mark from day one. That sucks. But because of her scheme, I found out I had a daughter. A smart, talented, amazing daughter who makes me prouder every day. So yeah, even though it was terrible, something good came from it." Carrie leaned against the railing. "She wrote me a letter. From prison." Clint's protective instincts flared. What did it say? That she was sorry. That she never meant to hurt me. That she hoped I'd visit her someday. Carrie looked at him. "I'm not going to. She used me, lied to Mom, tried to kill you. I don't forgive her. You don't have to forgive her. But Carrie, holding on to anger will hurt you more than it hurts her. When you're ready, maybe not now, maybe not for years, you might want to let go of that anger. Not for her sake, but for yours. Is that what you did? Let go of being angry. I'm working on it. Some days are easier than others." Clint put his arm around her shoulders. "But I've got a pretty good motivation to focus on the future instead of the past. Me, you, and Francis, and Max and Carlton and Bruce, and everyone who helped me survive. and all the buildings we're going to design together. Carrie smiled. McMahon Carlson architecture has a nice ring to it. They stood together watching the sunset, father and daughter, building something new from the wreckage of betrayal and lies. 6 months later, Clint received a letter from Kathleen. He almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. Clint, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, and I understand now how monstrous it was. I was drowning in debt, desperate, and I made terrible choices. I told myself you wouldn't really get hurt, that it would all work out, that I was just being practical. I was wrong. I stole 12 years of your life. I tried to use Carrie, an innocent girl, as a pawn. I almost made you both believe terrible lies about each other. I deserve every year of this sentence. If there's any justice in the world, you've built a relationship with Carrie. She's probably an amazing person. I'll never know her, but I hope she knows how lucky she is to have you. I'm truly sorry. Kathleen. Clint read the letter twice, then filed it away. Maybe one day he'd show it to Carrie. Let her decide if it changed anything. Maybe not. For now, he had more important things to focus on, like teaching Carrie to calculate load-bearing walls, like designing buildings that would stand for generations, like building a relationship with his daughter, one day at a time, on foundations of trust and truth. Clint McMahon had been betrayed by the person he'd trusted most. He'd nearly been murdered. He discovered a daughter he'd never known existed. And he'd won, not through violence or cruelty, but through intelligence, patience, and an understanding that the best revenge wasn't destruction. It was building something better from the ashes. He was an architect, after all. Building things was what he did best. Even when the foundation was broken, even when the structure seemed unsalvageable, there was always a way to create something beautiful and strong. You just had to know where to place the support beams. And Clint McMahon always knew where to place the support beams.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.